For all the attention pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses are getting, polls show the war may not sway young voters in November. This week, we saw more protests broken up by police, students opposing the war in Gaza, and Biden administration policies toward Israel. But polls show the conflict in Gaza barely registers among young voters. According to a Harvard Youth survey in March, only 2% of those aged 18 to 29 said it was their top issue. The immigration and the economy ranked much higher. Still, President Biden appears to be hemorrhaging support in this age group. Back in 2020, Biden beat Trump among young voters 60% to 36. Now, a recent NBC News poll shows a dead heat. Trump leading Biden 43% to 42. So, Lulu, how much is the war in Gaza actually hurting Biden among young voters?
It depends which young voters you're talking about.
I'm talking about the vast majority of
but
young voters.
I understand, but I don't think that that's true. I mean, I think that it matters very deeply to a lot of young voters, but I would say that they are like the rest of the country. They care about other issues. They care about, college debt, student debt. They care about, the economy.
According to the polls, they care more about that.
Right now, this is an issue that is top of mind. I'm wondering come November if it is going to be an issue that is top of mind.
Raihan, for all the attention that the protests on campus are getting, indications are it's really a small minority of college students who are actually out there protesting. And I guess the question is, are we exaggerating the political impact? I'm not talking about the right or wrong of the issue. Are we exaggerating the political impact among young voters of protesting the war in Gaza?
I think that President Biden is making a big mistake if he believes that he's going to win over young voters by abandoning Israel and threatening Israel. I do believe that it's a big issue for this reason. I think that Biden's administration is dominated by an awful lot of people who are very receptive to this kind of organized pressure campaign to change U.S. policy in Israel. It has nothing to do with real-world voters. It has everything to do with donors and other very influential pressure groups on the left that want to punish Israel.
This is not about, I'm going to jump in because I actually have young voters in my family. And the things they care about is they're a little disaffected that they can make any change. I think that's what I hear from all their friends and all their, Gaza is not the issue. The economy is, and whether they have any impact and whether it matters. That is what my kids talk about a lot and their friends.
Okay, I want to take another look at the youth vote because there's some interesting indications that in analyzing the youth vote, the key is not generational, it's gendered. Listen to these numbers. Among women, 18 to 34, 60% identify as Democratic, 22% as Republican. Among young men, there's only a 5-point Democratic advantage, 39% to 34. Carol, why do you think there is such a big gender gap among young voters?
Again, it's happening everywhere. It's not just that. It's older people and between women and men at every age group, I think, of voters. It depends. I mean, I think women are more concerned with issues about bodily autonomy and some other things they're very worried about under a Trump administration going forward. Reproductive rights and things like that. And I suspect, again, a lot of young men are disaffected. There's a very big problem with young men feeling not part of the society, feeling disaffected, and so you'd be more attracted to a strong man than you would others.
I want to pick up on that with you, Jonah. I kind of understand, I think, intuitively why women would lean towards Biden. Why do you think it is? And we see this in polls, particularly among young men, non-college educated, blacks, Hispanic young men, that they are really trending towards Trump and away from Biden. How do you explain?
Yes, I mean, first of all, this is, as some of us were saying, this is an old story. I mean, Chris Matthews, 30 years ago, described the Democrats as the mommy party and the Republicans as the daddy party. That's how they present themselves. One's nurturing, one's stern, and all that kind of stuff. But then I think in the new age of social media, where people balkanize and consume different kinds of media and have different kinds of approaches, and they self-sort by gender, that's a part of it. And then a big part of it is that the changes in the economy are pretty good for women. A lot of the new jobs are better suited towards women, speaking in broad stereotypes. And the days where you could work your way into the middle class and provide for a family simply by virtue of having a good work ethic and a strong back are over, and that's bad for men.
Lulu, why do you think the Democrats seem to have a problem with young men?
I think what we see exactly in the demographic data is that young men in particular aren't going to college as much. They're not doing as well academically. So they're not moving into those jobs that this economy actually creates and that moves them into the middle and upper classes. And so I think that there's economic disparities. I also think that, frankly, the things that young women are passionate about are things like bodily autonomy. They do see the Democratic Party as being a champion of that, and they are worried about their future under a Republican Party, specifically on that issue.
Speaking of voting,